Ocean Story is with you, and I have new stories that touch me. My family has never been wealthy, and my brother and I have a lot of problems because of this. Things could have been different, but my parents just worked regular jobs and paid their own bills. This could not help me or my brother Grayson in life. We were often made fun of at school because of our poverty. My brother and I could wear old clothes for a long time, which was very noticeable. Already at the age of 16, I had to work to buy some clothes for the next year. Also, my younger brother needed things, and I had to save money for him as well. All this happened when my mother became seriously ill, and all the money was spent on her treatment. We had a very hard time with Grayson. My financial situation became much better when I started working. Even though I was studying at the university at the time, I managed to work part-time. I was earning several $1,000s a month. My brother also worked sometimes and had his own money. However, my income was not enough to pay for all the things I needed. Most of what I have was bought with loans, because my dad earned money almost all his life to treat my mom. Help from other relatives came to us, but unfortunately, that money was not enough for long. I lived like that until I was 23, when I started a full-time job after graduating from university. Then I was able to earn my own living and moved away from my parents' house. Even though I didn't live with them, I sent an allowance to my dad once a month. I also started a relationship with Adam, who is 2 years older than me. After 1 year of our relationship, Adam and I decided to get married. It was very difficult to organize a wedding because I didn't want to spend a lot of money on it. So Adam and I had a not-so-lavish wedding. We only invited our family and close friends. My relationship with Adam has some difficulties. He and I don't earn much per month. I have often thought that my life could end up like my parents. I was also constantly worried about my own debts. I needed my own car for work 2 years ago. I didn't have any money, so I had to take a car on credit. Given my current salary, I will have to pay for the car for another 8 years. I have repeatedly asked Adam to save money every month and start paying off our own debts. Money issues have been plaguing me for a very long time, until eventually Adam got a new job. That paid him $8,000. This is half of what Adam used to make. Finally, our family income became higher, and we were able to pay off all our debts. My husband did not support me in this either. Adam told me that we should think about the future first, and only then fix the past. I talked to Adam many times, but it was difficult. My husband did not want me to cover my own debts at his expense. My friend said that Adam's behavior was not very good because I am now part of the same family as him. This means that all problems have to be shared. I completely agree with my friend's opinions. One day I was on the phone with my brother, and I was complaining about Adam. At that moment, Adam heard everything and then started yelling at me for making him look rude and greedy. We started a fight, and Adam and I didn't talk for a few days. I am very annoyed by Adam's attitude towards common problems. When I talked to my brother Grayson, he told me that he and his wife are working on solving all the problems. My brother is working and his wife is also working, so they make a joint budget together and pay for everything they need. I was hurt and I told Grayson about my pain. My husband did not like that I told all my relatives about his attitude towards our financial life. Adam keeps telling me that I should keep quiet about it and keep my mouth shut. I really disagree with him, and we have fights about it all the time. When I married Adam, he was very different. My brother and his wife used to come to my house to visit. There, events occurred that raised questions about my marriage to Adam. We were having dinner and discussing minor topics. My brother began to sway the topic of conversation to love in the family and the importance of supporting each other. My husband reacted to this. "Grayson, where are you going with this?" He replied, "In my opinion, Adam, you are being very rude to my sister and making her suffer." Adam replied, "In what way am I upsetting your sister?" A verbal altercation ensued between the men. Grayson said, "My sister keeps telling me that you don't care about her problems. Adam, you only think about your own immediate problems." My husband did not like being called out in his own house. Adam told my brother to go away. I stood up for my brother and told Adam, "If you kick my brother out now, I will also leave you." My husband became quiet and just went to the bedroom. My brother would not stand for this treatment and left with his wife. I went to my husband's bedroom and started asking him questions. "Adam, what the hell are you doing?" Adam replied, "I don't want to talk to you now. Go away." You think I'm selfish and greedy. Do you need me only because of my money? Since then, Adam has been very cold to me, and we stopped sleeping in the same room. Our marriage is on the verge of collapse. I feel like a hypocritical fool. I only wanted money from my husband, but what I really needed was support. Autumn, I'll start by saying that it doesn't take a genius to figure out that you were interested in Adam's relationship with your financial situation. The fact that you call it support is just an excuse for your true desires. I was going through a difficult period with money and my husband, but I managed to reach an understanding with him. Through sincere conversations, I didn't go to anyone and tell them what a jerk my husband was for not wanting to give me money for a new iPhone. You need to grow up and realize that no one really owes you anything. In fact, only your behavior is disgusting in this situation. You shouldn't have told all the people that your husband doesn't want to be your personal sponsor. Adeline, it is clear that the financial difficulties have had a significant impact on you and your relationship with Adam. However, it is important to remember that effective communication is crucial in any partnership. It doesn't matter what the specific issues are. I completely understand that you wanted to address your financial problems and debts. It is equally important to approach such discussions with compassion and understanding. The confrontations and fights between you and Adam have only made things worse. In the future, both partners need to sit down and calmly discuss their financial goals and responsibilities and work together to find a balanced solution that will support their relationship. At the same time, solving financial problems. Maybe you should find another job that will give you more income, and you won't be so angry with your husband, because Adam is not the only one who has to think about money. Ian, this story highlights the complexity of relationships and finances. It's natural for couples to face financial challenges, but it's how they deal with them that ultimately determines the strength of their relationship. I can see that you and Adam are at a critical juncture, with communication breakdowns and growing resentment. To save their marriage, both parties need to reflect on their behavior and attitudes. You should strive for empathy, compromise, and open dialogue. For Adam, it is important to recognize the importance of emotional support in addition to financial stability. I'm really surprised by your husband, Adam. I think he should really help you with your debts. I wouldn't want to waste my money on someone else either, but within a marriage it's normal and you have to put up with it. Adam thinks that you are with him for the money. But I have a question for Adam. Why do you value money more than your wife? He started a conflict with you because of money and doesn't want to communicate with you because of that. In fact, I condemn such behavior from a morally mature man. Perhaps if you had children, Adam would not be very willing to allocate money for them either. You should leave such a man who does not value you. Next story. There was a very strong conflict in our family. Because of my sister's decision, I am now 63 years old and I had a sister, Haley, who is 20 years older than me. My sister had a good life and moved to another country. Towards the end of her life, Haley came back to her home country with her husband. Haley and her husband bought a big house with a lot of land. 2 years later, he died. In honor of her husband, Haley planted a beautiful garden. At that time, I had my daughter Gianna, who was 12 years old. She was the only child in my family. Unfortunately, my sister did not have children due to personal health problems. Haley once wanted to take a child from an orphanage, but it never came to that, and Haley immersed herself in her husband's business. Thanks to her husband's business, they were able to live abroad and buy a nice house. Haley also had 2 nice cars and an old motorcycle. In fact, Haley was not super rich, but I would not say that she lived poorly with her husband. Compared to all the families we have, Haley had the highest income. I never envied her and was happy that Haley's life was successful. In turn, Haley never spared money for gifts for her family or children, so there is definitely nothing to complain about. My sister always tried to invite all our relatives to her house for the holidays. Haley didn't like people, but she didn't want to be alone all the time. No one ever went to Haley's nice house. There is really a lot of space for a celebration, and for children not to interfere with the adults' rest. Until now, most of our family has been from Haley, different cousins, our nephews with their families. A lot of people came every holiday. Sometimes I was even surprised that we had so many relatives. But even though we have so many relatives with my sister, Haley was only able to have a good connection with my daughter Gianna because my daughter was never interested in what her aunt could give her as a gift. My daughter truly loved Haley, and always listened to her stories about her youth. Gianna was very fond of my sister and her husband. She even drew pictures of them, which my sister kept and kept. Haley put one of these drawings of Gianna in a glass frame. It hung by her bedside. There was a picture of Haley and her husband Santiago in front of a house. It always made me happy that my daughter loves Haley so much. When my daughter was 21 and in college, Haley died in her home without waking up after a night of sleep. Those were very dark days for our entire family. We all mourned Haley for a long time. The worst started a month after Haley's death. Before all of us had even recovered from the events, new trials began. A letter came to my house. It stated that Gianna was inheriting all the property from her aunt. Only certain things were to be sold and sent to a child protection fund. To be honest, I had no idea that Haley would bequeath everything to my daughter, who is only 21. Gianna was happy about it, but not too happy, because the house reminded her of her aunt and all the good memories. We started to put all the papers in order regarding Gianna's ownership of the house and the land. That used to belong to Haley and Santiago. Our other relatives were watching and were extremely outraged that my daughter had gotten all the property. Some cousins said that we should sell the house and divide the money among everyone. Other people demanded that we divide the property among everyone. I had to argue with many people about these issues. I knew my sister very well and the weight of her words. If Haley decided something, it had to happen. She never cared about anything else, let alone other people's opinions, so I knew for sure that I wasn't making a mistake. When I was preparing the documents for my daughter, although there was a lot of criticism of my family, many people thought I was a fraud and said that I was deliberately forcing my daughter to sit with Haley. Often, my daughter would cry and want to give up because she was tired of being insulted by other people. There was also nothing good about our family on social media. It was like a hell I didn't ask for. When everything settled down a bit and relatives began to forget about it all, the son of one of my cousins said that it would be nice to spend Thanksgiving with the whole family as before. The place he suggested was the Haley house. I started receiving calls from the boy's father. Jordan called me and told me that he was going to have the whole family at the Haley house. I almost lost the last hair on my head and told him, "Jordan, are you asking about the plan that will be implemented?" He said, "I want us to gather the whole family in the Haley house again, like in the old days." For the last 5 years, it has become a tradition for all of us. I objected and said it used to be a tradition for everyone, thanks to Haley's wish. Now the owner of the house is different, and I have to ask Gianna if she would be okay with the celebration in her house. Jordan got angry with me and said that I had become very selfish and did not think about the family. Then I went to my daughter's house and told Gianna that some of our relatives wanted to spend Thanksgiving at her new house. My daughter's reaction was not very clear. Gianna said I needed time to decide. I did not rush her, as there was still a lot of time before the holiday. After a few weeks of my daughter's reflections and dozens of phone calls from relatives, I received a response from Gianna. She said, "I wanted to honor my aunt's memory this year, but only if the celebration is not loud and the guests don't invite their friends who are not part of our family." You won't believe it, but there were some people who even condemned this and said that we had set stupid rules. Also, my daughter said that this year there should be no alcohol at the holiday to honor the memory of Haley and Santiago, because they always condemned alcohol. Many of our relatives reacted negatively to this and began to spoil my daughter's mood with their insults to her. It got to the point where we almost canceled everything. Gianna often regrets accepting the inheritance. I think all our relatives are assholes who can't accept certain facts. They were never really interested in having a relationship with Haley and Santiago. That's all most of our relatives were interested in, is my sister's big fortune. Whether my daughter is a bad person for making rules in her own home. Valentina, your sister Haley meant a great deal to your daughter Gianna, and her decision to leave her property to her is a testament to their strong bond. I can't imagine how difficult it must be for Gianna to navigate these conflicting opinions from relatives who seem more interested in the material aspects than in honoring Haley's memory and wishes. Your relatives have started acting like freaks. It's very commendable that Gianna wants to honor her aunt's memory by having a quieter and more family-friendly Thanksgiving celebration. After all, this is her home now, and she should have the freedom to set the rules as she sees fit. It is unfortunate that some relatives are not understanding and supportive of her decisions. I think so. If someone is against Gianna's opinion, that person can simply not come to her house. I don't understand why other people started to behave so aggressively. Your daughter is not bad and is not to blame for her aunt's decisions. I am sure that Gianna did not ask Haley to sign over her property to her. Some people are willing to tear others apart for their own gain. It's a shame that your relatives are the first to do this. Isla, reading this story, I was in awe of how disgusting people can be sometimes. Now I understand why your sister didn't like people. In my opinion, Gianna is not a bad person for wanting to honor her aunt's memory in this way. It's a respectful and thoughtful gesture, and it's important that she feels comfortable and at ease in her new home. No one had any right to judge your daughter for her choice. After all, it is now Gianna's home, and it is she who determines what will be in it and what will not. I'm sure many relatives only dreamed that Haley would leave the business and inheritance to them, but it was a gift that your daughter received fairly. You are doing the right thing by supporting Gianna and not leaving her alone to deal with all the problems. Many parents could have been selfish. I wish your family to overcome all the hardships. I recommend changing phone numbers for a while. Cooper, what would have happened if you hadn't supported your daughter? I'm sure Gianna couldn't take the pressure and sent all her relatives away. In fact, they deserved that reaction. I wouldn't have cared about such events. If I know that I don't have a good connection with someone, then I have no right to claim that person's things. But most of your relatives do, that they are more worthy than Gianna to receive a large inheritance. I don't want to upset them, but they were all wrong. You and your family should forget that you have any relatives. Move on and don't listen to any fools like Jordan. I'm sure your sister made the right choice. My next story. My Uncle Carson has been my guardian since I was 13. I also have my brother Robert, who is now 30 years old. He has his own family and one son. My brother always wanted to have a family, but he was never ready to have a serious relationship with girls. In his youth, Robert dumped a lot of girls when it came to something more serious than walking in the park and holding hands. Robert was never a very hard worker and dumped some of the work on me as a younger brother. Robert's parents were both terminated, so that's how Robert and I ended up in the care of my uncle and his wife. For a long time, I could not get used to not living with my parents anymore. However, it was a great benefit for Robert and me because my parents did not know the limits of alcohol consumption. It was my Uncle Carson's initiative to apply to social services to put Robert and me under his care. My brother was also happy not to have to live with our alcoholic parents, although it was difficult for Robert to get along with Carson because my brother is used to the fact that no one controls him in anything, and he can do whatever he thinks is right. My brother is the kind of person who loves freedom and doesn't like being controlled. I am more lenient in this matter and listen to my uncle and his wife Gabriella more easily. The most unfortunate story happened when I was 20 years old and my brother was 27. On my birthday, many people gave me money. I also saved for a few years on various small things, all to buy myself a new motorcycle. At that time, Robert was already living with his family, separately from me and our uncle's family. The relationship between us, that is, me, my uncle, and my brother, was not bad. Carson was a great substitute for my biological dad. Of course, Robert didn't like our uncle a little bit because he was always giving him bans for various stupid things. Robert was very happy when he left my uncle's house. Now I have my own room with a lot of space. I could not afford it while living with my parents. My uncle respects my desire for space, so he allowed me to put locks and close my room because Carson often had friends or guests over, and to prevent anyone from entering my room by accident, I locked it. This was not a problem for Carson or his wife Gabriella. They were always polite to me and knocked on my door. In my old house, I didn't even have a door to my room. Once Carson and Gabriella invited my brother to visit them. To my great surprise, my brother agreed to come to visit our uncle. It was a weekday and I was going to classes at the university, so I did not see my brother and his family arrive at my uncle's house. I live less than 5 minutes from the university, so I always walk. I only use my motorcycle on weekends. Moreover, my uncle asked me to be careful and use my motorcycle whenever possible. Carson is very worried about me after he had an accident himself. My brother Robert came with his family this afternoon. I didn't get back until after 5 o'clock. My friends invited me to go to a party at one of our classmates' houses in the evening. I didn't really want to, but I decided I would go. When I got back from the university, I went straight to the garage to check the gas in my motorcycle's tank. When I went inside, I didn't see my bike and thought Carson had rolled it to the backyard because my uncle is always doing something with his car and my motorcycle is in the way. I checked the backyard, but my bike was not there. When I walked into the house, Carson and Gabriella were sitting at the table with Robert and his family. I approached Carson quietly and asked him about my motorcycle. He said, "Son, I haven't touched it in a few days." Then my panic got a little stronger and I said out loud, "I've just been robbed." Everyone started to worry and think about what to do. Suddenly Robert said, "I haven't seen the motorcycle in the garage either. My uncle installed a camera in his garage 2 years ago, so I went to look at the footage from that day. On the recording, I clearly saw a male silhouette that looked very much like my brother. At the end of the recording, I could see the jacket the man was wearing. I went to the living room and saw that it was my brother's jacket on the recording. The whole puzzle was formed in my head, and I went to the kitchen where everyone was sitting. I said loudly, 'Robert, why did you take my motorcycle?' He said, 'I didn't take anything and had nothing to do with the motorcycle at all.' I said, 'Stop lying. The garage security footage clearly shows that you took the bike.' Robert said, 'Okay, I took your bike. I really wanted to ride something fast. Unfortunately, I don't have my own car, so I used your bike. Unfortunately, I lost control of the bike and barely managed to jump off it before it hit the fence. The motorcycle is beyond repair, and no amount of repair will help it. I wanted to tell you about it, but only in private. I was very angry with my brother at that moment. I had to save for a motorcycle for 2 years, and many people gave me money to buy my dream, only for Robert to come one day and destroy my motorcycle. I started yelling at him and demanded that Robert pay for the damage. My uncle calmed me down, and almost the whole evening was devoted to the quarrel between me and Robert. The next day, Carson came to my room and started apologizing instead of my brother. Carson asked me to calm down and not to put pressure on Robert because he is under a lot of stress right now because of what he did yesterday. Besides, your brother doesn't have a lot of money right now, so it's unlikely that he can give you $10,000 right now. My uncle said it quite accurately, but I was still angry with Robert. I said to my uncle, Robert could at least admit his guilt. Honestly, instead of saying he had nothing to do with my bike, my uncle agreed with me that at that moment, Robert acted like a bastard. Carson told me that he could give me $6,000 right now to buy me a new motorcycle, just as long as I didn't borrow Robert's and sue him, because I was planning to get compensation from my brother for destroying my motorcycle. I didn't want my uncle to pay his money for that asshole. I started to refuse Carson's money and I said, "Uncle, thank you for helping me like this, but I'd rather go to court and sue my brother." In the end, my uncle was able to talk me out of it, while Robert did not even apologize to me. My brother never started paying the debt to my uncle. Since then, I have not been in contact with Robert. He is an asshole who does not appreciate other people's things at all. Sometimes I regret listening to Carson. Alice, what your brother did was very impulsive. I am amazed at your uncle's kindness. Carson was wrong to vouch for Robert. It was already perfectly clear that Robert is a jerk who doesn't give a damn about other people's stuff. You should have gone to the police and reported your brother. It may sound harsh, but Robert had no right to take your motorcycle without asking for permission. I think you have a lot of respect for your uncle if you listen to him, but remember, your brother is a fool who deserves to be punished. If anyone in my family did something like that, I would go to the police without a doubt. As some people say, everyone is equal before the law. I don't care who damages my property. Everyone will be held accountable. Madeline, your brother's decision to take your motorcycle without your permission and then only admit to it after you confronted him is a clear display of selfishness and irresponsibility. Not only did his actions cause damage to your precious property, but he also showed complete disrespect for your property and feelings. Robert has demonstrated a complete disregard for your property and possibly even the safety of others, as he admitted that he was not in control of his motorcycle. This level of recklessness is troubling. Your brother is a grown man, but he acted like a teenager who took a car for the first time without his parents' permission. How could Robert have lost control of the motorcycle? I can logically conclude that Robert was driving around the city at a high rate of speed. This could have easily attracted the attention of the police. After all, your brother was breaking the rules of the road and putting himself in great danger. Robert probably forgot that he has a family and shouldn't take such risks. Angel, at first your brother denied his involvement, and then he admitted his actions only afterwards, when he had to face up to it. It shows a lack of honesty and responsibility, instead of taking immediate responsibility for the harm he caused. Your brother Robert tried to avoid the consequences of his actions, which is not a commendable trait. Your brother's actions have not only affected your motorcycle, they have also worsened the relationship within your family. His unwillingness to make amends, sincerely apologize, or even begin to repay your uncle could lead to long-term tension and resentment between family members. Also, your uncle, Carson, has extended a helping hand to you by offering you financial assistance to buy a new motorcycle. However, your brother's ungratefulness for this support, as well as his unwillingness to repay the debt, indicates that he is unable to appreciate the help provided by family members, and that he does not value it. Robert does not deserve this support from his uncle. You don't want to deal with jerks like that. Now I want to tell a different story. For Christmas, we invited my parents and my wife's parents to our house. Also this time, my brother and his family were able to come. I was very pleased to have so many people at my house again, because for the past 2 years, I could not celebrate because of my illness. Strange as it may seem, but for almost 2 years, I was sick with something specifically on major holidays. Also, my wife's friend came to the holiday with her family. My wife's friend Cora has a husband and 2 sons. The oldest son in Cora's family is Maverick, who is 17 years old. My wife Ruby and I have 2 children. My son Nicholas, who is 16 years old, and my daughter Eva, who is now 10 years old. My son does not communicate with the son of my wife's friend. I have never insisted that my son Nicholas try to be friends with Maverick. My wife always said it would be cool, but I really didn't want to put pressure on my son. I think that forcing your children to be friends with someone is a bad tactic. Especially this year, I was able to invite Cora and her family. So if the children wanted to communicate with each other, they would do so. My kids were also very happy that the holiday would finally be in our house, and they wouldn't have to go anywhere and stand in traffic. During the holiday, my wife deliberately sat all the children next to each other. I didn't pay much attention to it and didn't say anything to Ruby. I was busy organizing the dishes on the table. After the holiday was over and all the guests went home, only a few stayed at my house for one night because they had a long way to go home. My son Nicholas came to me and said that his ring was missing. It was very upsetting for my son because the ring was left to him as part of his grandfather's inheritance. Moreover, the ring was valuable not only because of the pleasant memories, but also because of its value. I began to ask my son where he had last seen the ring and if he had forgotten it in his chest. Nicholas and I looked around the house, but we never found his ring. My son said during the holiday, when I was sitting next to Maverick, he noticed my beautiful ring and asked a lot about it. I even let him try on the Maverick and he said it was very nice and he liked it. But after that, I then took the ring away and put it next to me on the table. Maverick often looked at the ring because he liked it so much. It was only after the holiday that I noticed that the ring was nowhere to be found and your dad came to see you. I listened to my son and made the logical assumption that Maverick had stolen my son's ring. Since the basic facts were the same, it was a very likely version. I asked my son if he thought that Maverick had stolen the ring. My son said it was possible. The next day, I called Cora to put her son on the phone. I started talking to Maverick and asked him, "Did you happen to take my son's ring?" Maverick said, "I measured it and looked at it, but I didn't take it for good." I ended the conversation with Maverick and went to my son to ask Nicholas to look better for his lost ring. A few hours later, my son came to me and told me that the ring had not been found. I called Cora again and told her that it was very likely that Maverick had stolen my son's ring. She didn't believe me and said it couldn't be true. I told her the whole situation, but Cora did not confirm what I said. Then I started to blame her son and demanded that Cora keep an eye on her son, and then she told me that she had found my son's ring at Maverick's. She got very angry with me and said that I was not in my right mind because I said that her son was a thief without any grounds. For the next 2 days, I called Cora every day and asked if there was any progress in tracking Maverick. She sent me away several times and did not want to talk. By this time, I told my friends about this situation, and we collectively began to condemn Maverick. My wife and her friend found out about it. Ruby told me to stop insulting her friend's son, but we fought about it because I thought Maverick stole my son's ring, and my wife said I was accusing Maverick for no reason. A few more days passed and Nicholas came to my room. He didn't say anything, he just sat down across from me and held out his hand. Nicholas was holding a ring in his hand. He said I had put the ring in the top pocket of my shirt and completely forgot about it. I was shocked by this and did not know how to resolve this conflict. I had to call Cora and apologize to her for what I said. Cora told me I was a freak because I had accused her son of stealing without finishing the job and started telling everyone around me. Cora said she would not speak to me again until I publicly admitted my guilt. Many relatives who know about our conflict agree with Cora and say that I am an asshole. Even when I apologized to Cora and Maverick, it didn't save me from being judged. How can I fix the whole situation now? Dominic, if I write that you went overboard, it won't be enough. It's very frustrating to see how quickly assumptions and accusations can ruin a relationship. In this story, you jumped to conclusions and accused Maverick of stealing without any concrete evidence. While it is natural to be concerned about the disappearance of a valuable item, it was irresponsible to make such a serious accusation. Without a thorough investigation, it is important to remember that accusations can have lasting consequences not only for the accused, but also for the reputation and connections of the accuser. In such a situation, you should reflect on the damage done and take sincere steps to restore trust and apologize to those affected. Although I'm not sure if anyone would even want to forgive you after you've been ruining people's moods for days. But of course, not only the mood, you started spreading gossip. Your behavior was very disgusting. Serenity, it was unfair to accuse Maverick of stealing without giving him a chance to explain his side of the story. Moreover, Cora's repeated calls and her son's persistent accusations without evidence only further strained their relationship. To remedy this situation, you should reflect on your actions, admit your mistakes, and sincerely apologize to both Cora and Maverick. Of course, now it can't be fixed with just words. I don't understand how you came up with the idea of accusing a teenager of stealing without evidence. Your son was very inconsiderate, and now Nicholas must bear the punishment. You are not alone in this situation, so bring Nicholas along and apologize to Maverick together. You and your son are very much to blame. If I were Cora, I would also be angry with you for this behavior. Jackson, I partially understand you, but if you had been more tactful and not started throwing accusations at Maverick, all this could have been avoided. In my opinion, these actions can be described as follows: that you were very embarrassed by your son's words, so you wanted to help him, but you acted very impulsively, and this led to negative consequences. It's commendable that you cared about Nicholas' problems, but it doesn't mean that you have to react to these problems so sharply. Look what you've done. Your wife is angry with you, Cora thinks you're a jerk, and your relatives are completely on the same page as Cora. I don't know what can help you at all. Next time, be more careful. A story that really surprised me. I am currently married for the second time in my life. 11 years ago, I divorced my ex Braden. He found a new girl with whom he quickly started living. At that time, I already had a child with Braden. My son was 1 year old at the time. It was not very difficult to raise my son alone. In fact, I was happy not to live with Braden anymore because I didn't feel love from him anymore, and it was very clear that he was not interested in being with me anymore. At first, I was worried about this issue until I met Roman. We quickly realized that we would be great together. When my son Evan was 3 years old, I married Roman and had happy days with him. I finally had hope that my son would have a good dad, because Braden didn't even want to take partial custody of his son. Most of the time, I was the one who raised Evan. When my son got older and he was 5 years old, I started taking him to our relatives' holidays. My mom loved Evan very much because of his sweet eyes. My son loved to make up different stories. So at the celebration, Evan would sit next to my mom and tell her stories all the time. Later, Roman and I had another child. When 7 years had passed since my divorce from Braden, suddenly he became interested in the life of his son Evan. Once a month, Braden could write to me and ask about his son. But Braden never went further than writing. When my son was 8 years old and we had plans to celebrate Christmas at my parents' house, my husband and I were detained at the airport and could not fly to our children for 2 days. My mom agreed to look after them and give them a wonderful holiday. My Christmas with Roman was spent right in one of the airport rooms. It was very awful, and I want to forget it forever. When Roman and I returned home, my mom said that Braden had called her. I asked her what exactly Braden wanted. My mom told me that Braden called me and asked if we were planning to celebrate Christmas. I told him that we did and that you and Roman were not at home right now. When Braden found out about it, he asked if you were taking the children with you. I answered that the children are at my house now. Braden started asking me if I would give him permission to come and take Evan to his house to spend the holiday. So I told him no, not until I got your permission. It was impossible to get in touch with you. I thanked my mom for telling me this story and was very surprised that Braden had awakened parental feelings for Evan. Almost 8 years later, I got Braden's number from my mom and decided to call him. My ex picked up the phone and we started talking. I asked Braden, why did you want to think about your son all of a sudden? He said, I realized that I need my son. Then I told him, just because Evan was born to you doesn't make him your son. Braden said, you're talking nonsense. Evan is my son and I have the right to raise him. I reminded my ex that Braden once gave up custody of Evan, so I don't really owe him anything now. Braden started saying that I had stolen his child and that I deliberately didn't want Evan to be raised by his own father. I ended the conversation with my ex at that point. Braden thought that after so many days of silence, he could just show up and turn my whole world upside down. I forbade him to see Evan or have any contact with him. I don't want my son to think that Braden is a good person who supports him. For 7 years, my ex didn't even mention Evan's existence. So he now has no right to interfere in Evan's life. After this incident, Braden tried to talk to me many times about our son, but every time Braden got the same answer. Braden scolded me and even once filed a police report that I had kidnapped his son. Braden tried to influence my decision for a long time. However, my family supported my decision because everyone knew how disgusting Braden had been to me. I did not agree to any of his requests. Braden suggested that he spend 1 hour a week with Evan under my supervision. I said, Braden, you don't get that right. I will do everything I can to make sure your own son knows the truth, what a piece of shit you are, and that you left him for a girl. Braden told me, you're too rude and you're only saying that because of your own resentment. I blocked Braden's number and deleted all methods of communication. He thinks I'm selfish for not wanting Evan to know him. But what else was I supposed to do? My son is too young to fully understand why he should hate Braden, so contacting Braden is clearly not going to be good for my young son. Moreover, Evan already has a new dad who loves him very much. Quinn, your ex is a total asshole. You've been through quite a journey with your ex Braden. Your decision to raise Evan on your own and eventually remarry Roman was undoubtedly influenced by Braden's initial disinterest and absence from your son's life. It is understandable that you might have doubts about Braden's sudden re-entry into Evan's life. After nearly 8 years of minimal contact, it is clear that you have made a decision in Evan's best interest as a normal mother, taking into account his emotional well-being and the support he receives from Roman, who is actively involved in his life as a loving father. It is not uncommon for children to be confused or hurt by inconsistent parental involvement, especially when they have been absent for a long time. Your ex shouldn't be so angry with you. First and foremost, Braden should blame himself. Never. While Braden may have changed his mind and wants to reconnect with Evan, it is important to put your son's emotional stability first and think about what is best for him. Obviously, your family is supportive of your decision, and their understanding of your history with Braden will play a significant role in this. Navigating these complex family dynamics can be incredibly challenging, and it's important to keep Evan's best interests at the forefront. As he gets older, he may express his own feelings and wishes about his relationship with Braden, and this needs to be taken into account as well. Ultimately, it is your decision as parents to protect Evan's emotional well-being and provide him with a stable and loving environment. It doesn't matter what Braden thinks about it. This guy hasn't even mentioned Evan or given money to him in 8 years. And then your ex comes along and plays the cool dad to Evan. Do not, under any circumstances, connect your son's life with Evan.